2, 3 days later, Betty White and I are called in together, and he says, I would like to hear you ladies read together, and Rue, would you read Blanche, and Betty, would you read Rose? And Betty said, Rose? First she'd heard of it. And she said, okay, I haven't looked at it, but I...
For decades, millions believed The Golden Girls was built on warmth, loyalty, and sisterhood. But shortly before her death, Rue McClanahan quietly dismantled that illusion. Behind the laughter, the cheesecake, and the pastel walls of Miami, she exposed a set ruled by hostility, resentment, and power struggles that never healed. For years, she endured tensions the audience was never meant to see. What really happened when the camera stopped rolling? Join us as we uncover the truth behind it all, and what you discover may surprise you. Number 1, Rue McClanahan, trapped between two silent enemies. While the Golden Girls appeared harmonious on screen, relationships among the cast were largely distant and often strained. The most explosive truth centered on B. Arthur and Betty White. According to multiple producers and crew members, the tension between the two women was not occasional. It was constant. They did not socialize. They rarely spoke when cameras stopped rolling. What viewers saw as playful contrast on screen masked a deep personality clash off it. B. Arthur reportedly resented what she saw as Betty White's performative sweetness toward the audience. Betty, on the other hand, thrived on audience interaction and warmth, something B found exhausting and insincere. Co-producer Marcia Posner Williams later confirmed that B used harsh language about Betty in private, describing the tension as real, lasting, and never resolved. Rue McClanahan was caught in the middle. Unlike the others, she could still speak to both women without igniting further conflict. Crew members often described her as the emotional buffer on set, the one who softened B's sharp edges and reassured Betty when things turned cold. Rue never dramatized this publicly while the show was running, but in later reflections, she made it clear the environment took a toll. She often found herself navigating tensions quietly rather than enjoying the close friendship audiences assumed existed. The consequences were significant. By the end of season 7, B. Arthur chose to leave the series. While officially framed as a creative decision, insiders acknowledged that emotional exhaustion played a role. Rue later implied that no amount of success could compensate for years of unresolved hostility. She endured it quietly for the sake of the show, but what she received in return was emotional strain, caused by both her co-stars and the production itself. But the tension between B. Arthur and Betty White was only the surface fracture, because while Rue was holding the cast together emotionally, she was quietly discovering something far more painful. No matter how essential she was to the show's survival, her voice no longer mattered where it counted most. And that realization would explode the moment the Golden Girls tried to live on without B. Number 2, how producers shut Rue out after B left. After B. Arthur's departure, Rue McClanahan hoped the Golden Palace could evolve rather than imitate the past. Instead, she encountered what she later described as outright dismissal. Rue proposed adding a new character to rebalance the ensemble and refresh the dynamic left broken by B's absence. From her perspective, it was a creative necessity. From the producer's perspective, it was an inconvenience. Her idea was rejected immediately. The reason she was given wasn't artistic, it was financial. Syndication rights and rebroadcast profits mattered more than narrative strength. In her memoir, Rue described the producer's reaction with brutal honesty, writing that their response wasn't worth a flea's belch. That line became infamous. What made it shocking wasn't the insult, it was the clarity. Rue realized her creative voice no longer mattered. Despite being a cornerstone of the original show, her insight was treated as expendable. She later explained that the Golden Palace failed not because of the cast, but because the production refused to adapt. Character development was frozen. Emotional evolution was ignored. The women were expected to repeat old rhythms without the emotional glue that once held them together. The result was inevitable. The show lasted 1 season. For Rue, the damage went deeper than cancellation. It confirmed something she had long feared. Her loyalty to the franchise was not reciprocated. The success of the Golden Girls had become a brand, and brands do not listen. That rejection changed how Rue saw everything that came before it. It forced her to look back and recognize a pattern she had ignored for years. To understand why Rue felt so deeply disrespected, We have to go back to the moment the Golden Girls almost failed before it even began. Number 3, the decision that saved the show and cost her power. One of the most surprising truths Rue McClanahan confirmed before her death was that the Golden Girls nearly collapsed before it even began because the network misunderstood her completely. Originally, Rue was cast as Rose Nyland, the sweet, naive woman from Minnesota, while Betty White was assigned the role of Blanche Devereaux. On paper, it made sense. Rue had spent years playing wholesome, gentle characters. Betty had a history of portraying sewily confident women, but in reality, both actresses felt trapped by those expectations. Rue later admitted that she feared being erased as an artist if she accepted Rose. She wanted to prove she could be daring, sharp, and emotionally complex. Betty, meanwhile, was desperate to escape the label of the promiscuous one. Together, they quietly pushed back against the casting decision. The director ultimately ordered the switch after seeing the auditions. Rue became Blanche. Betty became Rose. The show was saved, but for Rue, the victory revealed something darker. In later interviews, she acknowledged that even when actors were right, the system never credited them. Creative decisions were framed as directorial insight, not collaborative intelligence. The message was clear. Actors execute, producers decide. Rue once said that if she had been forced to play Rose every day, she would have felt emotionally exhausted and disconnected from herself. Blanche, while flamboyant, allowed her to channel control, timing, and psychological nuance. Yet even as she shaped one of television's most iconic characters, she was excluded from meaningful creative authority. This contradiction stayed with her. The role swap became a symbol of everything Rue resented. The show's success depended on her instincts, but the industry refused to acknowledge her agency. Blanche Devereaux existed because Rue fought for her, while Rue McClanahan herself was slowly doing the opposite, retreating, breaking down, and disappearing behind the character the world adored. And that is where the final truth becomes impossible to ignore. Number 4, Blanche was a mask she could not escape. Perhaps the most devastating truth Rue McClanahan revealed was this: Blanche Devereaux was never her real self. To the public, Blanche represented fearless sexuality, emotional confidence, and unapologetic desire in middle age. Viewers assumed Rue lived the same way, bold, flirtatious, and unburdened. That assumption could not have been more wrong. In reality, Rue lived cautiously and privately. She rarely appeared publicly with romantic partners and avoided discussing her love life altogether. While Blanche chased affection loudly, Rue struggled with deep anxiety that followed her from childhood into old age. In her memoir, Rue described panic attacks that intensified as the sun went down. She called sunset the hour of the crash, a time when fear, abandonment, and insecurity returned without warning. These episodes were not occasional. They were lifelong. Her personal life was equally fragile. She endured multiple failed marriages, some ending in painful legal disputes. One divorce forced her to surrender a significant portion of her Golden Girls earnings at the height of the show's success. The media quietly folded those struggles into Blanche's image, blurring fiction and reality in a way Rue never consented to. As she aged, physical health problems compounded the psychological ones. Surgeries, chronic pain, and long-term medication became part of her daily life. Prescription sedatives helped manage anxiety but carried serious risks when used for decades. Blood-thinning medication meant to protect her heart may have contributed to the brain hemorrhage that caused her fatal stroke in 2010. What makes this tragic is not just the suffering, but the silence. During the show's run, none of this was visible. Rue smiled. She performed. Blanche became immortal, celebrated as a symbol of freedom and confidence. But Rue McClanahan slowly disappeared. This is what she wanted the world to understand before her death. Blanche survived the world. Rue barely survived Blanche, and she paid the price for it. Behind the laughter and confidence that defined the Golden Girls, Rue carried a truth most fans never imagined: success built on silence, endurance, and personal loss. Knowing what you know now, does the show feel different to you? Do you see Blanche as freedom or as a mask Rue had to wear to survive? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story changed the way you look at the Golden Girls, like this video, subscribe, and join us as we uncover more truths Hollywood never wanted told.